You ever see someone sitting alone in public and feel that pull in your chest, like your heart is tapping you on the shoulder saying, "Hey, do something"? That's what happened to me on a warm fall afternoon, the kind of day where the air smells like dry leaves and the sun feels gentle instead of mean. If I'd taken a different sidewalk, or if my kid hadn't looked up at the right moment, none of this would have happened. But we did. And it did. I'm Caleb Hart, 36, single dad, permanently tired, the kind of tired that lives in your bones. I was walking with my daughter, Poppy, down Alder Street toward the little ice cream stand we only visited on special days, which meant basically never. But that afternoon was special. Not because I had money to burn, but because Poppy had gone almost 2 full weeks without a seizure. If you don't live with that kind of fear, you don't understand what 2 weeks feels like. It feels like breathing after holding your breath underwater for months. We were halfway to the shop when Poppy slowed down. I felt her hand tug my sleeve. "Daddy," she whispered. I turned to see what she was staring at. Across the street, in a small, almost empty park wedged between apartment buildings, an old woman sat alone at a picnic table. Not just sitting. Waiting. She was in a wheelchair, her back straight like she'd trained herself not to collapse into it. She had a store-bought cake in front of her. 1 candle. The flame shaking in the breeze like it didn't know if it was allowed to be there. No balloons. No friends. No family. No one. Just her, that cake, and an October sky pretending not to notice. Poppy squeezed my sleeve again. "I think it's her birthday." "How can you tell?" "She has a candle," she said like that was obvious. Then her voice softened. "She looks sad." I stared a second too long. I didn't want to get involved. That's the honest truth. Not because I'm cold, but because life kind of taught me to keep walking. When you're running on empty, you start rationing your kindness like gasoline. But I looked at her, at the way she held her hands in her lap like she was trying not to take up space, and something twisted in me. Loneliness recognizes loneliness. It's a language you learn the hard way. Poppy tilted her head. "Can we say happy birthday?" I had a number living in my head like a countdown clock. $43,000. That's what it would cost for Poppy's surgery. The one they said would stop the seizures. The one that could give her a normal life. I had $29,000 saved. Every extra shift I took, every night I did deliveries until my eyes burned, all of it was chasing that number. It felt like I didn't have time for anything else. Not strangers. Not detours. Not moments. But my kid was looking at me with those big hopeful eyes and a gap-toothed grin that still somehow survived everything we'd been through. "All right," I said, before I could talk myself out of it. "Let's go." Poppy practically dragged me across the street. As we got closer, the woman looked up. Pale blue eyes. Sharp, alert, but worn down around the edges. Her silver hair was combed neat, like she'd done it for somebody even though nobody showed up. She wore a sweater even though it wasn't cold, the way older folks do when they've spent too long in air-conditioned rooms. I felt suddenly awkward, like I was interrupting something sacred. But I cleared my throat and went for it anyway. "Excuse me, ma'am," I said. "My daughter noticed it might be your birthday. Would it be okay if we joined you for a minute?" Her face moved through a whole storm in 2 seconds. Surprise, suspicion, then something fragile. Like hope was a muscle she hadn't used in a while and wasn't sure still worked. "You want to sit with me?" she asked. Her voice cracked on that last word. Poppy nodded fast. Nobody should be alone on their birthday. The woman blinked hard, like she was fighting tears. "I'm 80 today," she said softly, as if testing whether saying it out loud mattered. 80? Poppy gasped. "That's like ancient. I'm 7. I shot Poppy a warning look, but the woman laughed. A real laugh, rusty around the edges, like it had been sitting in storage. It changed her whole face. "I'm Nora," she said. "Nora Bellamy. And yes. I'd like that very much." We sat. I helped Poppy cut the cake. Vanilla, the cheap kind from the grocery store, but honestly it smelled good. Nora watched us like we were doing magic tricks. Poppy talked the way kids do, non-stop, bouncing between topics without needing permission. School. Her teacher, Mrs. Glenn. A rock she carried in her pocket because it looked like a heart. She pulled it out and handed it to Nora like it was treasure. Nora turned it over in her hands. "That's a good eye," she said. "She's a good kid," I said, before I could stop myself. Poppy, being Poppy, took that moment to blow up my spot. "Daddy works all the time," she announced proudly. "He does dishes in the morning, fixes stuff at the auto store after lunch, and types on his computer at night. He's the hardest worker in the whole world." Heat crawled up my neck. "Sweetie, you don't have to dash." "No," Nora said gently. "Let her talk. I want to hear." So I told her the light version. That it was just me and Poppy. That her mom wasn't around. That Poppy had a medical thing we were saving for. I dodged details like they were landmines. Nora didn't pry. She just listened in that way nurses listen, the way people who've held a lot of pain don't rush you through yours. Finally she said, "I was a pediatric nurse for 41 years. Something in me clicked. The way her eyes scanned Poppy's face when she blinked too long. The way she kept her voice calm, steady, like she'd trained herself to be safe for scared kids. "I worked at Brightview Children's Hospital," she said. "Most of my life." "Did you have kids?" Poppy asked, blunt as only a 7-year-old can be. Nora paused. Her eyes drifted out toward the trees. "No. I told myself I was too busy. The truth is, I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" Poppy asked. "Afraid I'd fail," Nora said quietly. "So I took care of other people's children instead." I felt that land in my chest. Because I'd been afraid too. Afraid to sit down long enough to feel how close I was to the edge. Afraid I wasn't enough for my kid. Afraid that no matter how hard I ran, that number would outrun me. We talked until the candle burned low. When we finally stood to go, Poppy leaned in and hugged Nora so hard the wheelchair squeaked. "We'll come back," Poppy said, like it was a promise already written. Nora smiled, but I saw the cautious part of her too. The part that had learned not to trust good things unless they showed up twice. "We'll see," she said softly. The next Saturday, Poppy wouldn't let it go. "We promised," she reminded me at breakfast. Like a tiny lawyer. So we went back, carrying a $3 bouquet from the discount store, daisies because that's what Poppy liked, and because I couldn't afford anything else. Nora was there in the same spot, hands folded, looking like she'd told herself not to expect anything, but had come anyway just in case. When she saw us, her whole face lit up. I mean lit up in a way you don't fake. Her shoulders lifted. Her eyes sharpened. She looked, for a second, 20 years younger. "You came back," she whispered. "Of course we did," Poppy said. "We told you." That visit turned into another Saturday, then another. By the 4th week, it was a routine we didn't even talk about, just did. Nora gave us her address eventually, a modest apartment 6 blocks away, and invited us over for hot chocolate. I almost said no. I still had that clock in my head. Every hour not working was an hour I couldn't put toward surgery. But I watched Poppy around Nora. How she laughed more. How she forgot to be afraid for a while. It felt like Nora was giving her something I couldn't buy. So we went. Nora's place was small and spotless. Books everywhere. Framed photos of kids I didn't know. I asked who they were. Nieces. Nephews. Some patients, she said. The ones who kept in touch. There was a softness in how she said it, but also a bruise. While Poppy drew at the coffee table, Nora and I talked. She told me about the accident that put her in the chair. A delivery van running a light when she was 40. 1 second walking home after a long shift, the next waking up in a hospital bed she'd spent half her life working in. Spinal damage, she said. Permanent. Your family? I asked. They visited at first, she said. But life keeps moving. People build their lives without you if you're not in the flow anymore. I didn't blame them. I just realized I hadn't built much of my own. That hit me. Because I hadn't built much either. I'd been in survival mode so long I didn't remember what normal life felt like. Before we left that day, Poppy climbed into Nora's lap like it was the most natural thing in the world. You're my park grandma, she declared. Nora froze. Then laughed again, softer this time. Park grandma, she repeated. I like that. And I didn't correct her. I didn't even think to. By winter, Saturday visits had become our anchor. Some weekends Poppy even stayed overnight, watching old movies with Nora, learning to knit little crooked scarves, eating pancakes the next morning while Nora told her stories from the hospital, the funny ones and the brave ones. For the first time in years, I felt something close to balance. Not easy. Not fixed. But less alone. I still didn't tell Nora about the money. Not all of it. I didn't want her to look at us with pity or obligation. I liked what we had. It felt clean. Human. Chosen. Then February hit like a wrecking ball. I was at my night job, doing data entry in a fluorescent office that smelled like burnt coffee, when my phone rang. The school number. My heart dropped before I answered. Mr. Hart, the nurse said, voice tight. Poppy had a seizure. A long one. Ambulance is taking her to Riverstone Medical. Everything after that was a blur. I drove like the world was ending because, in my mind, it was. I walked into the ER and there she was, my kid, tiny and pale with electrodes stuck to her head, eyes half closed, body exhausted from fighting itself. I held her hand until she opened her eyes. Daddy, she whispered. Am I okay? I did what dads do. I lied with a smile. You're okay. I'm here. The doctor pulled me aside. The seizures are escalating. Medication isn't holding. We need to move the surgery up. 2, maybe 3 weeks. 2 weeks. I had 31,000. I needed 43. I nodded like I understood while my chest caved in. I felt like a guy standing on train tracks hearing the whistle and realizing he can't move fast enough. Back in the room, Poppy fell asleep. I sat alone in a plastic chair, staring at the floor, doing math that didn't change no matter how many times I did it. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Nora. Poppy missed our movie night. Everything okay? My hands shook. I should have sent a polite answer. Something small. Something safe. But in that moment I was so tired, so scared, so done with pretending I had control, that I typed the truth. All of it. The seizures. The surgery. The cost. The deadline. The number that haunted me every minute. The fact I was short and I didn't know how to make the world bend. I hit send and instantly regretted it. Her reply came back almost immediately. Which hospital? I blinked. Riverstone. I'm coming. Nora, it's late. You don't have to dash. You chose me as family, she texted. Let me choose you back. An hour later she rolled into the hospital like she'd never stopped belonging there. Nurses greeted her by name. She knew the layout. She knew where to park her chair. She sat next to me without saying much, just placed her hand over mine. Sometimes support isn't words. Sometimes it's just the weight of someone staying. Poppy woke up and saw her. "Grandma Nora," she whispered, voice scratchy, "you came." "Of course I did, sweetheart." Poppy smiled and drifted back to sleep. The surgery got scheduled, March 9th, 19 days. I worked like a man trying to outrun a storm. Extra shifts. Delivery runs. Moved a neighbor's couch for $20. Anything. My number crawled up to 36,000. Still not enough. The night before surgery, I sat at my kitchen table staring at my bank app like maybe I could will it to change. Phone rang. Hospital billing. "Mr. Hart, I'm calling about tomorrow's surgery." My stomach dropped. "Here it comes." "Cancellation." "There's been an update," the woman said. "Your balance is zero. The surgery's been paid in full." I couldn't breathe. "What? That's not possible." "Who dash?" "I'm sorry, sir." The donor requested anonymity. But I already knew. I called Nora. My voice was breaking before she even answered. "Nora. What did you do?" Long pause. Then she said, "I did what family does." "Nora, that's everything. I can't accept that." "Caleb Hart," she said, calm but firm, "listen. I saved money for decades because I had no one to spend it on. I planned to give it away when I died because I thought that was all I had left to offer the world. But then I met you too. I didn't want to be generous in death. I wanted to be part of your life now." I tried to protest. She cut me off gently. "You didn't take from me. You gave me something worth staying for. You gave me Saturdays. You gave me laughter. You gave me a granddaughter who calls me grandma like she means it. You gave me a place in the world again. Don't steal that from me by refusing to let me show up." Silence on my end. Tears rolling down my cheeks. "Go sleep," she said softly. "Tomorrow we're doing this together." The next morning I sat in the waiting room like my bones were made of rubber. 6 hours felt like 6 years. Nora stayed beside me the whole time. When Dr. Lin finally walked out, her surgical cap still on, I stood so fast my vision blurred. "It went well," she said. "We found the seizure focus and treated it. She's stable. We're cautiously optimistic. I think my soul left my body and came back." They let us see Poppy in recovery. Her head wrapped in white bandages, eyes heavy, but when she heard my voice, her fingers squeezed mine. "Hey, baby," I whispered. "You did it." She cracked a sleepy smile. "Did I win?" "You won." Nora leaned in close. "You absolutely won." Recovery was slow. Painful. But she got stronger day by day. By week 2 she was complaining about hospital food. By week 3 she was telling nurses jokes and planning what she wanted to do when seizures are gone forever. And they were. They stopped. Months passed. Then a year. No seizures. My kid got her childhood back. I got my kid back. Life didn't turn perfect. It turned possible. I landed a steady tech job with humane hours. I slept more than 4 hours a night for the first time in years. We still went to Nora's every Saturday. Still did pancakes. Still did knitting and movie nights. Poppy called her Grandma Nora everywhere. School events. Birthdays. By the time Poppy was 13, Nora was the person she went to when she fought with me. The safe middle ground between a kid and a dad trying his best. When Poppy got into college to study pediatric neurology, she said, "I want to help kids like me." Nora cried so hard she had to dab her face with a napkin. "You will," she said. "Because you understand them." On Nora's 90th birthday, we went back to that park where it started. Same picnic table. New cake. More candles than a kid should be allowed to light without supervision. Nora watched the park around us. Families. Kids on swings. People laughing with no idea how lucky they were to have each other. This, she said quietly, is what I always wanted. You have it, I told her. She looked at me, eyes bright, voice steady. Because you showed up. You didn't walk past me that day. 2 weeks later, she passed in her sleep. Peacefully. No hospital drama. No panic. Just a quiet exit from a life that had finally felt full. The funeral was small but packed with love. Neighbors she'd adopted. Old nurses who still called her Bellamy. Poppy wore the silver necklace Nora gave her. A tiny stethoscope wrapped around a heart. At the will reading, the lawyer slid an envelope across to me. Nora had left most of her estate to Poppy and me, and a chunk to the children's hospital she worked at. My brain short-circuited. I didn't even know she had that kind of money. Then I opened her letter. She wrote that she'd been invisible for 80 years. That meeting us gave her 10 years of feeling seen, needed, loved. That money is just numbers until you give it purpose, and we had given hers purpose. Don't be sad too long, she wrote. I died rich in the only way that matters. I died family. Every year since, on her birthday, we go back to that picnic table. Sometimes it's just me and Poppy. Sometimes it's friends. Someday it might be Poppy's kids. We bring cake, light candles, and say her name out loud in a park that almost let her disappear. Because here's what I learned. Showing up for someone isn't a small thing. It can rewrite a life. It can build a family out of thin air. And it can save you in the exact moment you think you're saving them. So I want to ask you. What would you have done that day? Would you have walked past Nora? Would you have stopped? And if you've ever seen someone sitting alone, carrying a quiet kind of hurt. Did you show up? Tell me in the comments. I mean it. I want to hear the stories. The ones about kindness that changed things. The ones about loneliness you didn't ignore. The ones about family you chose. If this hit you anywhere in the chest, like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs the reminder that it's never too late to matter to somebody. And sometimes the smallest, "Can we join you?" is the beginning of everything.